Greetings, great bodhisattvas. Doshim Inzan Gartland here with Andre Doshim Halaw tonight, here for Sangha Alive. And we're going to be discussing Seung Sahn's, one of his great teaching devices called Compass of Zen. So, greetings, Andre.
Greetings, everyone. Thank you for having me. This is my first foray into Sangha Alive community.
So, no, it isn't actually. We did that one Dharma talk that I recorded there. And
oh, okay. Well, this is the first live, I should say.
Yes.
Participation. So thank you, everyone, for attending, or if you're listening. As Tom mentioned, we're going to talk about Seung Sahn's The Compass of Zen, which is next to Dropping Ashes on the Buddha, Seung Sahn's most popular book. It's a collection of writings that he gave, and the title itself refers to a pedagogical approach that Seung Sahn devised in order to help people understand the different ways that we can approach the awakening experience. In the same way that a manual transmission car can go from first, second, third, fourth, fifth, park, or I guess neutral, since I drove a stick shift, or reverse. Which gear we decide to use depends on where we are and what we need. And so when we're going to examine the pictorial illustration of the Compass of Zen, it follows the same idea, which is sometimes 90 or 180 degrees is more pertinent, especially if we're in a teacher's position where we need to dislodge somebody from where they're kind of stuck.
Ideally, put up the graphic there so people have an idea of what 90 and 180 and so on actually refers to.
So a little background about Seung Sahn is he was a Korean San master, San being the Korean word for Zen, who was not raised originally in like a monastic community and only ordained in his early 20s. And then he, interestingly enough, when he had his great awakening experience, it was on a solo retreat, and it wasn't during a meditation practice. Instead, it was while he was chanting, which is, I think, more prevalent or at least prevalent in San circles than it is in Japanese Zen. From there, he traveled around Korea and eventually went to Japan, studied there, and came to the United States in 1968, I believe it was, where he got a job repairing washing machines in, I think it was Providence,
Rhode Island.
And the rest is history. He planted many Dharma seeds, and his legacy continues to this day, not only in the Quantum School of Zen, which is what he founded, but amongst other secondary institutions that flowered after him and in his lineage. I am a priest, monk, what have you, in the Five Mountain Zen Order, which is one of those sanghas that follow in his traditional footsteps. The actual illustration that Tom had up, I have on page 6 of Dropping Ashes on the Buddha, which is a great book about Seung Sahn's Dharma talks, or just mondos, as they're called in Japanese, which are exchanges between students and teacher.
So I have that up there again now.
Okay. So one way of understanding this circle is the same way you would a baseball field, where home base is where you bat from, that's where you start, but it's also where you return. That's the goal at the end, if there is a goal. And so you'll see it says 0 as well as 360. And 0 here is the the common state of delusion for ordinary beings, which is I-centered, motivated by greed, delusion, attachment, and we are trapped inside of discrete or linear thinking. So that he has there 1 plus 1 plus 2 equals 3. And of course that's an empirical truth, but when we get trapped inside of logic and thinking that logic can accurately capture reality, then we suffer. So he calls this karma I might call it dukkha I, because that's what it's like being there. The big old dukkha. With some practice, if we're lucky, we'll encounter the Dharma. And you see this across, I think, Buddhist traditions, which is you got to have some pretty good karma to encounter it in the first place. I don't know about now. You just have to have a computer. Maybe 30, 40 years ago, when Zen was, or Buddhism was proliferating in the United States, was beginning to proliferate, then you needed to encounter someone at a Dharma center. But here you can engage a teacher from virtually anywhere. So the internet really broadens everybody's karma. And interestingly here it says form is emptiness, emptiness is form. And yet Seung Sahn always made it a point to explain that this is still permeated or influenced by conceptual thought. So it's somebody who can accept that form is emptiness, emptiness is form, but still has not gotten it yet, hasn't experienced it fully. So it might be like somebody who understands the interconnectedness of an ecosystem, for instance. It's still kind of cerebral. It hasn't penetrated to their marrow yet, which is going to be the next stage, and that's 180. 180 he calls nothing I. There's nothing. There's no form, no emptiness. And mathematically he explains this as 1 times 0 equals 0. 1,000,000 times 0 is still 0. So this is directly across from 0. And with any luck, anybody who's practiced meditation, or maybe they have a profound spiritual experience, they have a glimpse of 180. Difficult to maintain, but we see it for a little bit, maybe experience it, and it can have pretty dramatic influences on the way that we live our lives, depending on how we interpret it. $270 is the most puzzling of them, and I think it's mainly pertinent for people who study koans. This is called Freedom Eye, and this is third base on our baseball diamond. And it's freedom from form, freedom from emptiness. And this one says 1 plus 2 equals 3,000. And we'll see, you've encountered these perhaps in those puzzling Zen statements where the stone lady's crying, a tortoise walks with the earth on its back. Because when we've thoroughly penetrated past and through the logical world, we're not trapped within the parameters of what language has trained us ultimately to think is correct and incorrect.
I've always thought of 270 as, and we've discussed this, as just where your head explodes.
I think Seung Sahn called it magical thinking.
Uh-huh.
I don't, practically, in terms of practical purposes, I don't, it doesn't, it's kind of glossed over and just accounted for in homage to Seung Sahn, but it doesn't really have that much practical application, none that I've ever seen. It isn't discussed much in his literature, nor in exchanges between teachers. I certainly don't refer to it that much, but it is a way to what's the word? Digest or uncover some of these cryptic statements, especially from koan collections or what some of these ancient Chan masters in particular talk about. It's easy to get hung up. What the hell does he mean by that? The sparrow lays a golden egg, eats the Nile in one bite. And then lastly is Big I, and this is 360, and this is 3 times 3 equals 9. So if you can imagine, it's not quite just like a circle, it's a spiral, because we're coming back to the starting place, but we're elevated. We transcended the mundane I, and yet we're still that same person, of course, because on Monday you have to go to work. Form is form, and emptiness is emptiness. This is manifested visually as the final stage in the ox herding pictures, where the Bodhisattva has come down from the mountain, arms fully open and embracing life in the marketplace. So we come down, shed even our holiness or religious ego, and come down and help people in any way that we need to. So we wear robes when we're in the Dharma room and ordinary clothes in the street if we need to. Or we might wear our robes in the street, depending. So this 360 transcends all limits and yet fully embraces bodies, what it means to be human, to have a form. Optimally, I suppose 360 is where we wind up. However, as I said, depending what our capacity is, if we're in a teaching position, we see somebody who's at 90, we have to get that person to 180, because you can't get to 360 until you've covered all those bases. Right? Then you get the home run and the trophy.
The Zen trophy, right?
There's a big Zen trophy, yes.
So let me ask you, in your experience running a sangha, participating in other sanghas, when you run into people who practice, and maybe who have been practicing for a while, do you find that more people are at 0 or 180? Is it 180? No, seriously. There's a lot of people that you come across that basically when they kind of wrap their heads around emptiness, they stop there, thinking, "Oh, okay, I got emptiness, done. See ya. I'm cool. I'm enlightened."
I'll go the middle way. And I'll say that I think more people are at 90.
Okay. In what regard?
In that it's largely most of their experience or understanding, I should say, and I don't just mean cerebral, but their understanding of form and emptiness is intellectual. And so they've somewhat of a grasp of, you talk emptiness and people get confused. You talk interdependence, which is the positive side of it, and people, oh, I get that, I understand that, but I don't think that they've really fully internalized that. And so I would go with 90 before I would say 180. I don't think I've encountered any students who were stuck or in that nothing eye. if you read Seung Sahn's Dropping Ashes on the Buddha, the title refers to one of his favorite famous koans, and it's about
Something,
it.
not making something look good. A problem in it. A bad thing in it.
Jyoti, can you mute your mic for a sec?
Hi.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. I'm good. It's early morning in India, and I have to cook a breakfast for the family. So I thought I'd listen in. I'm sorry I'm not on the video. Please don't mind me, but I am listening, sir.
Okay,
Oh,
good.
wonderful. Welcome.
Now, I had a real issue, Andre, with emptiness as you're speaking. You know, it's a real confusing concept. I always thought that I had it, but it's very surprising. It takes a lot of time to cultivate
Yeah,
mindfulness.
I think it's something that we have to internalize in
Yes.
a pre and in a post conceptual way, and that's what we were talking about.
Yeah.
That 180 on Seung Sahn's circle is really expressing
Yes.
is it penetrated through to it, and
Yes.
it's a reality.
Hmm.
Whereas
Yes.
90 is more of a it's a lip service, like, oh, I get it, and maybe they think they get it, but as long as
Oh,
we think that we've gotten it, I think it's still cerebral.
yeah, yeah. I have fallen into that many times. So I was just listening in. Thank you. Thank you.
My pleasure.
So, if there are any other folks out there who wanted to type in a question in the Q&A box, you could do that. We've actually enabled the Q&A function this time, as opposed to last time when we just sort of we forgot. So anyway, so let's discuss dropping ashes on the Buddha.
Mhm.
That's one of Seung Sahn's koans as well.
Mhm.
And not to give anything away, because we don't give away koan answers, but maybe you could just present the koan as it is without asking for a response or giving response.
Okay, sure. I'll preface it with the first time that I encountered Seung Sahn was through a coworker of mine who had read Dropping Ashes, and he tried to explain it to me. He wasn't a Zen guy, but he was intellectually curious about this. And so I read Dropping Ashes, and I could not understand what this crazy old Korean guy was talking about. It didn't make any sense to me, and because I'm trying to engage it at 90 or 0 probably is the where I was. And the koan is concentrated on 180, and it pertains to our lives very much, I think. And it begins where you're in the Dharma Center, the Zendo, and someone comes in, and this is written in the 70s, so the guy's smoking a cigarette. Very few people smoke cigarettes anywhere near the Dharma, but let's play along. And he enters, and he's smoking this cigarette. And walks right past you as you try to greet him. Hi, how are you? My name's Andre, please. And just walks past you with a cloud of smoke following him. And walks right up to the Buddha. All right, there's the Buddha. And he hovers above it very, with a lot of cockiness. Takes a deep draw of a cigarette and then ashes on top of the Buddha's head. Because for him, everything's Buddha. And
See, that strikes me as somebody who would be stuck in emptiness, where everything is the same, nothing means anything.
I mean, it almost sounds like he's, a hairbreadth away from nihilism, which is that nothing matters what I do because it's all it. And so he thinks it's okay for him to ash on the Buddha, which is incorrect behavior. In the great way, you and I might not be separate, but that doesn't mean that we're not different. You're you and I'm me, and you're in Massachusetts and I'm in New Jersey. So what we need to do is really a teaching koan. It's a matter of nuance. Is how do we dislodge this guy who's stuck in 180, and obviously has a chip on his shoulder because he thinks, who the hell goes inside of a Zen center and ashes on a Buddha unless he thinks he's the second coming or something like that? What point is he trying to make? So he's really swallowed this, and this poison is working its way through his system because he really thinks that he's something special here, which is ironic because everything is just the same for him. In an ashtray, a Buddha, it's all identical. So we have to teach him in some way, in some purposeful, helpful way, given what he's given us, how to get past 180. And that's the challenge that largely encapsulates, I think, Seung Sahn's approach, which is how do we facilitate somebody going on to the next stage in the practice? And how do we do that for ourselves as well? Recognizing that the path is never complete. There were always students of the Great Way, and it never ends. Even when we get to 360, there's always new techniques and new things that we can learn, new expressions of ways of conveying the Dharma in order to help people. So we can, you can wind up at 360 and still get stuck, just in a different way. Life is, the human mind is very sticky, so we have to constantly keep greasing it. And practice is really helpful, but so is having a good teacher or teachers, and that, as the case is. And in this instance, this young man who comes in smoking is our teacher. We're going to try to help him, but he's teaching us about our own limitations too, because we want to just smack him over the head. Get the hell out. We can't do that. At least we can't if we're trying to be that great bodhisattva at 360. So there's a lot going on there.
That's one of the situation, relationship, function kind of koans where, there's this, there's that, but like you said, you don't go into a Dharma room smoking and dropping ashes on the Buddha.
Tom there is referring to the 3 tenets of koan practice, or life practice, I should say, Dharma practice, where that Seung Sahn taught. Situation, where are you, what's going on in the koan, in life? Are you in the line at the grocery store? What's your relationship to it? Hell, I got to get out of here fast because my child's homesick, so I got to pick up this Robitussin or whatever. Or maybe I'm not in a rush, and the person behind me seems to be in a rush, so I'll let her go. And the way I like to phrase it is, considering those 2 things allows us to realize, how do we function? Function with a capital F. Function the great way of embodying this, the Dharma. Situation.
So I have a small question. What is the, how do you exhaust the intellect? Because the intellect can come in your way, and for me it has been a problem. Because reading all these books, and the mind is full of ideas and nothing seems to work. How do you exhaust it? I've had a real problem with intellect.
It's a great question. Well, understanding that no answer will ever appease the intellect. The intellect has an insatiable appetite, and no matter what book we read, we like to read, there will always be a core that'll be on the shelf that we think, what, that book has got the answer. So we have to repeatedly disappoint ourselves. And what it comes down to, at least in Zen practice, is the cup is blue and the coffee, hold on, is now cold. That's real.
Yeah.
That's tangible, right? That's not intellectual. We're directly experiencing that. And the wall is brown and this book is green. And I'm here at 7:55, and Tom, well, he's at 7:55 too. What time is it in India?
6:20 a.m.
Oh wow, early bird. So these are manifestations of the reality which is right here, and when we're off intellectualizing it, right? Trying to conceptualize and fit into these little compartments that our mind likes to create, or sometimes borrow when they're prepackaged for us, like a document. They're never going to satisfy us because ultimately reality, I mean, it's right in front of us. And that's the hard thing to really accept. We don't want to accept that. I want it to be more mysterious than that. I want it to be glittery and showy, but Seung Sahn is showing us, you know, what's beautiful about his Zen circle is that right here, 0 is where we wind up at the end. I mean, we're not going anywhere. So there's a deep symbolism there as well. Intellectually, it's fun to play these mental games as long as we know we're playing the game. But when we mistake that game for reality, then we've been reduced by the intellect into thinking that concepts are real. Concepts are helpful, but they're just concepts. Come back to the present reality.
The accumulation of, you know, facts and knowledge and whatnot that are, you know, that are in books and talking with other people and having a teacher and all that stuff. That's all wonderful, and there's nothing wrong with knowing something more today than you did yesterday or earlier today, but that's still not going to get you across that quote-unquote finish line of awakening, you know?
But is there a role for the intellect for all this scriptural study? There must be some role, isn't it? I mean, reading Seung Sahn must be something, meaning something for you.
I remember my teacher telling me that when he opened the Golden Wind, I think it was Golden Wind Zen Center in California, Seung Sahn came for the inauguration, and he looked at the bookshelf, and he looked at the library, and he was scanning the books, and my teacher like stood up proud, like, look at all these great Buddhist books. And Seung Sahn shook his head. He goes, "This is not a good Buddhist library."
Oh.
And he was like, "Oh no, what book? What sutra did I miss?" He goes, "You should have books about art here. You should have books about science. You should have books about Christianity. You should have books about geology, because these are all it, you know."
Okay, I got it.
Right, and so he wasn't criticizing the books that were there. He's just saying, don't be so narrow, because we think that the information contained inside of this specific piece of knowledge. All knowledge is it. Which means then we just have that open curiosity for information, because it's amazing to have a brain that works and can process these things, but not mistaking the map for the territory.
Okay, thank you.
My pleasure.
Thank you.
So it's just about 8 o'clock. A couple minutes of. You want to have any final parting words for us there, great Bodhisattva?
It's raining here, so I'll say stay dry. I like to have practical advice. In the United States here, we're approaching the weekend. Sleep well, and be kind to your loved ones and all beings.
And bugs.
And bugs, yes, especially bugs.
So, great. Jyoti, you got any other questions?
No.
You good? Okay. So, well, it's been just about a half hour, and I'd like to thank Andre Doshim Halaw from Original Mind Zen Sangha in Princeton, New Jersey.
Thank you, Andre.
It just flows.
Thank you.
You know, it's as if I've said it once or twice. If you've ever listened to any of the podcasts from Andre, I
have listened to him. I have listened to Andre.
Well, I get to do the.
You are the sound specialist.
So, speaking of which, you owe me one from this past Sunday, don't you? Andre?
Probably. I'll email it to you right now.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
All right. Well, very good. Andre, again, thank you for joining us. Thank you
My
for
pleasure.
participating in Sangha Live. And I will talk to you soon.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.